Hello, friends and franchise mavens. Last week, we were going through Chapter 7, looking at the franchise disclosure documents, the FDD, going through all the different sections on those. Today, we are continuing with Chapter 7, looking at what is negotiable and what is not. So, negotiations, nice and simple. With Richard, we found the perfect franchise for him. He didn't want a 9-to-5 everyday type job. He wanted to go out there, find something that was enjoyable. That was his big thing. So we found a services industry for him. There are some things we went through with Richard. We went through the franchise disclosure documents, franchise agreement, how to go about finding the employees, how the franchise is going to help you make that a lot simpler process. And that is why you pay the franchise fee and the royalties. You're looking for a nice, easy, simple process that's not too complicated, that's been proven out already. With territory, some things are negotiable and some things are non-negotiable in the franchise agreement, and that's where a good franchise attorney comes in. Keep in mind, I am not an attorney. I cannot give you legal advice at any point in time whatsoever. That is why you need a good franchise attorney to look through your agreement and look for things that stand out. This is not like a job where you go into corporate and where everybody's paid differently. When you go into corporate, you can negotiate. However badly they need somebody at that point in time, you can go in there and you can negotiate your salary. When I worked at corporate, they didn't really appreciate it if you talked about salary amongst each other. They discouraged that sort of thing. A franchise agreement is just the opposite. They want everybody on the same playing field. There's not a lot that is going to be negotiable in the franchise agreement itself. They want to keep everybody on a level playing field, keeping in mind that if everybody negotiated their own terms on a franchise agreement, once you get up to 100 or 500 franchisees, that's just going to be a nightmare to try and keep track of. They keep everybody exactly on the same level. For the most part, there's not much that can be negotiated in a franchise agreement. However, there are a few things, and territory is one of those things that can be negotiated. You can add a few more zip codes if you like, but again, a franchise attorney is where to go. I have not really seen the franchise fee ever negotiated, but some of the franchises here lately have been changing the franchise fee in return for a different royalty structure. So my point of view is it never hurts to ask. So that is a possibility, but generally speaking, franchise fee and royalties I've not seen as being really big on negotiating from the franchisor's point of view. Occasionally, though, during hard times, recessions, that sort of thing, I did see a couple of the franchises where you would not have to pay the royalties for 3 to 6 months. So again, it comes to the old saying, it doesn't hurt to ask. The worst they can do is say no. So generally speaking, I have not seen royalties too much in the way of being negotiated or franchise fee. Royalties especially, because that's how a franchise stays in business. If you want, and you really want them to stay in business because you want them to stay on top of what's happening out there in the franchise world and in their industry and keep you abreast of it. The ad fund is another thing. Some franchises have it, some franchises don't. Just make sure you're aware of it. That'll be in the franchise agreement as well as the franchise disclosure documents. Again, this may or may not be negotiable. I've seen sometimes where they will wait for a while. So negotiate on that one, definitely so, and ask about that. Again, disclaimer here, I'm not an attorney. Get an attorney's advice for that sort of thing. These are for the franchises I work with, by the way, and I work with well over 300 different franchises, but there's 4,000 franchises out there. So I cannot speak for every single franchise out there. I can just speak from my experience in the franchising world where I've been over the last 10 years. So, well, what's negotiable and what's not? Well, first right of refusal. That is where you buy a territory, and that's your territory. You're thinking about maybe more than one territory, but you really want to just try it out first to see how it works for you. So make sure you're comfortable with it and get it going before you take on too big of an area. Perfect idea. First right of refusal says if somebody's looking at the territory adjacent to yours, the franchisor has to tell you about it, and you've got a set amount of time, generally speaking, a week or two, to come up with money for that territory before that other person buys it. Negotiating, reducing your royalty, reducing your ad fund is possible. Sometimes again, sometimes not, just depends on the franchise. A good franchise attorney, again, will help you go through what is and what's not negotiable. Most importantly, what a franchise attorney does is they look through the franchise disclosure documents and they look through those franchise agreements for things that are out of place, unusual things. So very necessary to have a good franchise attorney, and I recommend everybody use one. So as I was talking about Richard, we found Richard the perfect franchise and talked to the franchisees and found out how much they're making, how much the top owners were making. He pictured himself doing what the top owners were doing and said, yep, I can do that. That's for me. I can picture myself doing all of it. And he really felt it. So we started putting him into the franchise and went through negotiating his contract. We got him a franchise attorney. And the franchise attorney said, Richard wanted 2 territories. He wanted a bigger area, makes more money. He knew he could take on more than that. He felt good about the business. The franchise itself had in the franchise agreement a franchise fee and a territory fee for each territory. Well, my franchise attorney took a look at that and said, that's not normal. This is actually highly unusual. The territory fee is fine. You got a territory fee for each territory. That part works. The franchise fee, just because you're buying 2 territories, why are you paying 2 franchise fees? You're only buying 1 franchise. You're buying 2 territories, 1 franchise. So why is there a territory fee and a franchise fee for both territories? That didn't make any sense. So this is why you get a good franchise attorney that can spot these things. He went back to them and said, this is highly unusual, doesn't look right. Let's waive that franchise fee for the other territories since he's actually only buying 1 franchise. So 1 franchise fee, 2 territory fees, and the franchise attorney got it waived. The franchise ultimately changed their franchise agreement and changed their franchise disclosure documents subsequently after that, reflecting that 1 franchise fee and multiple territory fees. Well, we got him out of that extra franchise fee on that one, which made Richard even happier, since Richard saved quite a bit of money, quite a bit more than he thought he was going to have to, and didn't have to pay as much as he thought he was going to have to. So Richard got his 2 territories. He's in the home services industry and living happily ever after. I think we ended up saving him about $15,000 on that 2nd territory fee. You can review the franchise disclosure document guidelines on my website. Give me a call anytime. And again, I'm not giving legal advice. Franchise attorneys help with that sort of thing. I will recommend some to you. You can find some on your own as well. So, franchise attorney, in conclusion, always get a franchise attorney to look over your franchise agreements. Always a good thing to do. I recommend it to everyone, and I'll send you a couple, or you can find your own after that as well. My name is Greg Mohr. I am the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Real Freedom, Why Franchises Are Worth Considering, How They Can Be Used for Building Wealth. Call me anytime you have questions, 361-772-6401, or email me at greg@franchisemaven.com. Maven is M-A-V as in Victor, E-N, or go to my website, franchisemaven.com. Next week, we're going to be going over Chapter 8. What are the next steps after investing in your franchise? Until then, everybody have a great week.